On September 1st, 2020, NVIDIA announced their brand new line of RTX 3000 series GPUs. While new revisions of hardware are expected, especially for PC, what wasn't expected was the leap in raw power. The RTX 3090, for instance, was stated to be 20% more powerful than the previous lines of cards available from NVIDIA. But even more exciting was the price. Sure, the 3090 launched at a whopping $1,500 at launch, but the less powerful yet equally impressive card from the same line, the 3070, was retailing for $500. Don't get it twisted, $500 is still a lot of money, but for those who don't know, it's highly unprecedented for new GPUs to launch so cheap relative to the increase in performance. And so, when the card was made available to pre-order, or buy, depending on the retailer, it sold out within seconds. Sites were slammed, cards were snapped up by bots, and most people, myself included, walked away with nothing, frustrated that we'd wasted our time. Why is it so hard to get new hardware anymore? Even in a pre-pandemic world, we still ran into issues ordering hardware whenever it launched. Aren't pre-orders supposed to gauge demand and sell accordingly? Are these manufacturers just that incompetent that they're willing to leave money on the table? If you were one of the many people who tried to order a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, or even one of the new graphics cards, you probably had this thought cross your mind. I know I certainly did, but as it turns out, it's a little more nuanced than that, and the blame doesn't quite fall where you might think it does. First up, why the hell can't they make a bunch of these cards all at once? Yes, we're still in a pandemic as of this video, but NVIDIA pushed back the release of the RTX 3070 to meet demand after the 3080 and 3090 were next to impossible to buy. So you'd think they'd learn from their mistakes and make some money, right? Listen, I'm guilty of blaming NVIDIA here too, but this isn't really their fault. NVIDIA has stated, albeit without specific detail, that their shortages were expected to last throughout the rest of the year and into 2021. The current issue resides in the supply chain and, according to sources speaking to Tweaktown, lies with the part of the chips manufactured from Samsung that NVIDIA needs to make the RTX line. Hardware of any kind is very rarely, if ever, assembled entirely by parts that is created from a single company and no one else. The new RTX is no exception, thus we get a bottleneck in the supply chain, which is exacerbated further thanks to COVID-19 and most factories still unable to operate at full capacity. In other words, NVIDIA has made a fast car, but needs someone else to give them the tires. Okay, so now we know why NVIDIA just can't produce chips 24/7 and why this might affect other companies, but that doesn't explain pre-orders or why they can just run out. Well, kids, this is where we get to the real issue of pre-order scarcity: retailers. Manufacturers such as NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel don't sell directly to consumers, just to retailers. Said retailers are where the headaches for consumers come in. In theory, pre-orders are to establish how much stock a company needs to meet consumers' demand. Pre-orders aren't supposed to be used solely to sell what a company actually has already and then no more. Retailers are only allocated a certain number of units at once, but the problem is that they tend to promise much more than what they have. That'd be okay in theory, except you get instances like this. The biggest casualty of retail sales is unsold stock. Your company just blew cash on wholesale inventory that will never have a return on investment. Since pre-orders can be canceled, retailers want to mitigate that potential risk, working under the idea that a certain number of finite orders will just be canceled anyway. Thus, this frustrating cycle continues to repeat. Retailers overhyping their stock on a new release, blowing it almost immediately, and then shuffling their feet and claiming they'll do better next time while people fruitlessly try to buy the next big thing. Now granted, we just talked about how NVIDIA is having supply chain issues, so maybe, you might say, companies aren't trying to oversell something they can't provide. Maybe they're just trying to ensure that anyone who orders gets theirs as soon as possible. And hey, I'd agree with that, except Pre-orders are defined as to request or purchase something before it is available for sale. Typically, when we pre-order something, we're under the belief that we'll get it the day it launches. But it doesn't have to be that way. Pre-orders don't have to guarantee an exact date, just that you're going to get it on an estimated date. You're on a list and it's coming. Now, there's plenty of people who wouldn't be happy with that, and I get it. I do. But let me give you a recent example of this from my own experience, where so far, it's worked out just fine. The Sinden light gun. As of this video, I don't have mine just yet, but I pre-ordered it back in July of this year. There's currently an estimated shipping date of late November, early December, and I'm completely okay with that. The folks behind the Sinden light gun aren't some major company either. It's dedicated enthusiasts who want to see light gun games working on modern displays. Yet, they've been completely transparent about how the batches are releasing, how production has been going, and rough estimates as to when it's being released. I'm not asking that every company give a step-by-step update anytime there's a new development with their manufacturing. But the fact that the Sinden folks have ensured that I'll get this light gun eventually just has me more excited for it. And honestly, it's this level of transparency and willingness to meet the demand that's got me ready to purchase a second for multiplayer games, if this one works as well as I think it's going to. But disregarding all those points, the retailers, the manufacturers, we still have a wonderful third party that's made pre-orders an Orwellian nightmare. Scalpers. Scalpers have been a huge problem for a long time now. Seemingly anything with a limited supply manages to get snapped up by people who want to immediately flip it on eBay or any other reselling site. You'd think that these people would have the same chances as the rest of us, but that's not really the case. In fact, the majority of the RTX 3080 and 3090 cards were confirmed to be bought by bots created by scalpers to undermine any normal consumers. Retailers like Newegg claim to have bot protection and policies such as their one card per customer rule in place to try to circumvent the onslaught. But if the launch of the 3070 and the immediate eBay listings tell us anything, it's definitely not enough. And when it comes to sites flat out not functioning properly, I got nothing there, man. Look, I'm not going to pretend I know all the ins and outs of production. A lot of this comes from research that I've tried to find, as well as talking to those who work at one of the companies we listed earlier. But I'm someone who works nights right now, and I don't flip that schedule on the days that I'm off. That means I'm normally asleep during standard retail hours, especially for electronic stores. There shouldn't be a requirement to turn my life over or lose sleep just to get something I'd like to have. It'd be nice if my desktop just worked a little better for those times I want to play something with friends, or stream with my fiancé, or just play a game released after 2014 without issues. It's frustrating to try and purchase something, have it in your cart, only for it to disappear due to system issues. It feels backwards that as someone who has the funds to purchase a product, I'm not able to through no real fault of my own. And yes, I'm no fool. There's obviously way worse problems in the world right now, but let's be real. Getting just a little bit of joy from a new toy shouldn't be this much of a headache.